Don't sit there, Mom. That spot's for real family. That's what my son said to me. I had just stepped into the dining room, gift in hand, smiling like someone who still believed she belonged. I had baked his favorite lemon squares that morning, the ones he used to sneak from the fridge when he thought I wasn't looking. I'd taken the bus to get here, 2 transfers, and the cold wind bit through my coat. But I came. Because I wanted to see them. Because I thought I mattered. My name is Maureen. I'm 75. And last night, my son looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't part of the family. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe, not for a second. I just stood there with the gift box in my hands and felt the heat rise up my neck. The dining room looked like something from a catalog. Warm lights, wine glasses, candles flickering on a table set for 8. And nowhere, not one place, for me. He didn't say it with anger. That might have been easier. He said it like it was obvious. Like he couldn't believe I needed to be told. Like he was doing me a favor by not making a scene. Michael had always been good at being polite when he wanted to hurt you. He stood at the head of the table, wearing a blazer I bought him years ago. It still fit, and it still made him look like the man I raised him to be. But his words didn't sound like that man. They sounded like someone who had decided long ago that I was an obligation, not a mother. We already set places for everyone, he added, not meeting my eyes. It's kind of tight. Maybe next time, we can plan better. I watched his wife shift in her seat. Amanda. She glanced at me briefly, then back at her phone. Not a word. No, hi Maureen, no smile, no offer to make space. Her hair was perfect, her nails glossy pink. She looked like a woman who'd already made peace with my absence. My grandson, Ryan, was tapping on a screen, earbuds in. He was 15 now. Too old to remember how I used to walk him to school when Amanda was working doubles. Too old to remember how I kept snacks in my purse just for him. He didn't look up. And just like that, I felt something shift in me. Not rage. Not grief. Something deeper. Something slow. I looked down at the box in my hands. A tie clip. Silver. Engraved with his father's initials, JM, for James Michael. His father wore it every day before he passed. I had kept it all these years, polished it last week, and saved it for this moment. I thought it would mean something. I thought it would remind him. But he didn't ask what I brought. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't even help me take off my coat. He just told me I wasn't real family. I looked at the table. 8 people. Amanda's parents were there. Her sister and brother-in-law. I had known them for over a decade. They all smiled when I arrived, but none of them said a word when he dismissed me. Not one of them asked me to stay. Not one of them said, "That's your mother, Mike." I felt small. Smaller than I ever had. I reached into my purse, found the envelope I had brought, and slid it beside the gift box. I straightened the corner of the tablecloth, a habit from my younger years, when I hosted every holiday in this same dining room. My dining room. The one I signed over to him 5 years ago because he said it would help with taxes. Because he said it was easier if everything was in his name. The music played on in the background. Something soft and expensive. Amanda poured wine, laughing at something her mother had said. My son was talking about a new client at work, his voice loud and smooth. No one saw me walk toward the door. No one stopped me. Outside, the air hit my face like truth. Cold, sudden, and sharp. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. I walked slowly, careful not to slip on the wet sidewalk. My legs ached. My hands shook. But I didn't cry. I had cried too many times before, and none of it had changed anything. At home, I put the lemon squares on a plate and left them in the building lobby. There's a boy on the 4th floor who always says hello. Maybe he'd like one. I left a note, "Be kind. Take one." Then I sat by the window, wrapped in the old knitted shawl James gave me the year before he passed. I looked out at the street, where snow started to fall. I watched the flakes gather on the railing like little reminders that silence could be soft, too. The envelope I left behind, the one no one noticed, held more than just paper. It held decisions. The house? Back in my name. I had never taken my name off the title completely. He didn't know that. I had just stopped talking about it. The accounts I helped him open? I closed them this morning. The savings account he used when things got tight? Gone. The trust fund from James for Ryan? Frozen, pending review. And a letter. Written by me. Short. Clear. Honest. This isn't revenge. This is remembrance. I raised you, Michael. I loved you. I still do. But I'm done being forgotten. I thought about all the things I had done over the years. The late nights sitting by his bed when he had fevers. The school projects I helped him finish. The time I skipped a dentist appointment because he needed money for a field trip. The birthdays. The scraped knees. The hugs after heartbreaks. And I thought about tonight. Where all of that led. To a quiet dismissal in a room filled with people who never knew who I really was. I remembered the way he used to hold my hand when crossing the street. The way he cried at his father's funeral and leaned into me like he was still 7 years old. I remembered how he used to call every Sunday after college. How he once said, "I don't know what I'd do without you, Mom." And then I remembered tonight. I remembered the look on his face. Not angry. Just annoyed. Like I was interrupting something more important. That's when I knew. I hadn't failed as a mother. I had just given too much. There's a difference. The clock ticked past midnight. I sat with my tea, hands wrapped around the mug. Across the room, the envelope I had prepared for my lawyer waited on the desk. Tomorrow, I would make it official. No more name on his accounts. No more co-signing loans. No more being the safety net for a man who only remembered me when he needed help. And maybe he would feel it. Not right away. But someday. When the mortgage bounced. When the taxman called. When Ryan asked about the trust. He would open that envelope and see that the ground had shifted. And maybe he would remember the sound of my voice. Maybe he would wonder how it came to this. And maybe, just maybe, he would understand. I didn't do this out of anger. I did it out of love. The kind of love that finally turns inward when there's nothing left to give. He told me I wasn't real family. So I stopped playing the part. There are things you remember not because you want to, but because they etched themselves into your skin like scratches you didn't know you had until someone brushed against them. I sat by the window the next morning, hands wrapped around my mug, the tea already cold. The silence in my apartment was comfortable, but my thoughts were not. My mind was stuck replaying his words, the way someone replays an accident. Looking for clues. Wondering when the damage began. Don't sit there, Mom. That spot's for real family. It was the way he said it. Calm. Clear. No hesitation. No softness. Like I had been told many times before and just didn't learn. I wasn't angry at the sentence. I was angry at how easy it was for him to say it. He didn't stutter. He didn't look uncomfortable. He didn't check to see if it hurt me. It was just a fact to him, like reading the time off a clock. He didn't even glance in my direction again after he said it. Like I had become furniture he didn't want to rearrange. All morning I tried to sit with that feeling. I tried to name it. But it wasn't just one feeling. It was all of them. It was disappointment, yes, but also grief. It was resentment, but also shame, shame that I didn't walk out sooner. Shame that I had spent so long trying to be loved by someone who only saw me when I was useful. That's the part that made it so hard to breathe. Because this wasn't the first time. This was a pattern. A lifetime of small slices that built up over decades. The time he forgot my birthday and said, "Well, you don't like parties anyway." The time I paid his car insurance without telling him, and when he found out, he said, "You didn't have to do that," like it was a burden, not a gift. The time Amanda rolled her eyes when I reminded Ryan to wear a jacket in winter, and Michael laughed, "Mom, he's not 5. The way he always introduced me as Maureen to his friends. Not as his mom. The way he sighed when I called during dinner. The way his texts got shorter every year. The way he said, "We'll try to fit you in," when I asked about Christmas plans. It all added up. And I let it. I told myself, he's busy. He's stressed. He means well. I made excuses for him the way I once made excuses for my late husband when he forgot anniversaries or left his coffee mug in the sink for the 10th time that week. I was trained to swallow hurt and turn it into understanding. But understanding can only stretch so far before it snaps. I looked around my apartment. It was small but clean. Neat. Quiet. The kind of space where everything has its place. No noise, no mess. No one needing me. And that silence, that used to scare me. I used to fill it with podcasts or music or phone calls. Now, I let it sit. Because in that silence, I could finally hear the truth. I had raised a man who didn't value me. Not because I was unworthy. But because I had taught him that I didn't need thanks. When he was little, I never let him see me cry. I cleaned up after him before he noticed. I gave up promotions to make time for his school projects. I skipped weekends out with friends to stay home when he was sick. And every time, I told myself, that's what good mothers do. But what I was really doing was teaching him that I didn't need care. That I would always show up, even when no one showed up for me. And he learned. He learned that I would be there, no matter what. He learned that I would forgive, no matter how deeply it cut. He learned that I would never ask him to look at me the way I looked at him. So when he told me I wasn't real family, it wasn't new. It was just louder. The pain sat with me all day. It made everything feel heavier. My arms. My chest. Even my tea. I tried to read. I tried to distract myself. But the memory kept coming back. The way his tone shifted when I arrived, like he had to manage me. Like I was a problem. The way Amanda didn't stand to greet me. The way she glanced at her phone, dismissing me with a flick of her eyes. The way Ryan didn't look up. And the way no one said a thing when I left. I kept thinking about that. Not one person said, "Wait." Not one person said, "Where are you going?" I could have disappeared that night and no one at that table would have known. That's what stayed with me. That's what hurt the most. I stood in front of the mirror in the hallway that evening, brushing my hair back, looking at the lines on my face. Tracing the years. I wasn't embarrassed to be 75. I had lived. I had learned. But that reflection didn't look like a woman who deserved to be dismissed. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't dramatic. I was just tired. Tired of chasing love that should have been freely given. Tired of waiting for recognition from someone I raised with my own 2 hands. That night, I pulled out the photo album. The old one. The one from when he was a baby. Pages filled with birthdays and holidays, school plays, beach trips. Me, holding him in every photo. Smiling. Proud. Tired, but proud. And then I turned to the later pages. Fewer pictures of us together. More of him with Amanda. Then with Ryan. Then just Ryan. Eventually, no photos with me in them at all. I hadn't noticed it before. But now I saw it clearly. I had been fading from his life one picture at a time. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a dinner table. It was about every moment I made myself smaller so he could feel big. It was about every moment I stayed silent so he could have peace. And now, I had none. So I closed the album. I put it back on the shelf. And I opened the drawer where I kept my papers. Deeds. Statements. Letters. All the things I never brought up. All the things he assumed were his by default. I read through each document slowly, carefully. Not out of anger. But out of duty. A duty to myself. Because for once I was going to show up for me. I placed the documents into a folder and labeled it, for review. Then I sat back down at the table, poured a fresh cup of tea, and stared out the window again. The snow had started falling again. Soft. Quiet. Relentless. Just like me. They didn't see me. But they would feel me. Not through shouting. Not through threats. But through absence. And this time, they would have to sit with it. The next morning, I opened the envelope I had prepared for my lawyer. Everything was in place. But I added a note at the end. It simply read. Let this be my line. My boundary. My beginning. I folded it carefully, hand steady. There was a strange calm in me now. Not happiness. Not even relief. Just stillness. The kind that comes when you finally stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be repaired. Later that afternoon, I got a text from Amanda. Just one line. Sorry things were awkward last night. Hope you made it home okay. Not a word about what Michael said. Not an apology. Not an acknowledgement. Just a sentence to clear her conscience, typed out in 10 seconds or less. I didn't respond. I let her sit with the silence. That evening, I walked 2 blocks to the corner bakery and bought myself a slice of cake. Chocolate. With thick icing. I sat alone by the window and ate slowly. No phone. No company. Just me. And it was the most peaceful moment I'd had in years. When I got home, I added one more note to the folder. I may be alone, but I am not invisible. And I meant every word. It didn't feel like a decision at first. It felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too many years. The day after Amanda's text, I didn't check my phone. I didn't feel curious about whether Michael had followed up, or if anyone noticed I hadn't responded. I didn't feel the pull to explain myself or soften the blow. Instead, I opened my windows. I let the cold air in and stood in the draft, breathing it in like something sacred. Something new. Then I unplugged the landline. I had kept that phone for years, mostly for them. For the occasional check-in, for the emergencies that always seemed to circle back to me. But I didn't want it ringing anymore. I took my time going through the folders. I canceled the automatic transfers to Michael's joint account. I notified the bank that all authorizations were now solely under my name. I emailed my attorney. By the afternoon, the first real snow began to fall. Not flurries, but heavy flakes that softened the whole street. It made everything quiet, like the world had lowered its voice just for me. I made a cup of coffee and sat down by the window, watching the snow cover the sidewalks. A neighbor walked by, holding a child's mittened hand, and for a moment I felt the old ache return. But it passed quickly. I didn't resist it. I let it visit, then leave. It was in that moment I knew I wasn't going. Not to Christmas dinner. Not to New Year's brunch. Not to any gathering where I would be expected to smile politely while being quietly erased. I picked up my planner and circled the dates they would expect me. Then I wrote one word across each circle in blue pen, no. It looked plain on the page. Simple. But to me, it felt powerful. That evening, I got another message. This time from Michael. Hey, didn't hear back. Just checking in. Amanda said you left kind of suddenly. Everything okay? I stared at it for a while. Everything okay? The question was so light. So casual. As if I had just misplaced a glove or forgotten my keys. As if I hadn't been pushed out of my place at the table. As if that sentence, "that seats for real family," hadn't split something wide open. I didn't respond. Because what I wanted to say would never be heard. And what I needed was not their concern anymore. Halfway through that message, something broke loose in my memory. It took me back decades, to the day my father told me I was on my own. "You're an adult now," he said. "Figure it out." I had just turned 17. I had nowhere to go. And I stood on the porch with a duffel bag and shaking hands, while my younger brother watched through the screen door, wide-eyed and silent. I remembered thinking then, one day, I'll be the kind of parent who stays. And I was. I stayed through every storm, every late-night call, every unpaid bill. I paid for everything, their groceries, their cars, their vacations when money was tight. I wrote checks without being asked. I cleaned their kitchen. I watched their dog. I helped raise their son. And still, they asked me to leave. I could have yelled. I could have gone to that house and demanded an apology, demanded answers. But I chose to remain silent. Not for pride. For my son. Because if there was even a shred of decency left in him, silence would say more than words ever could. That night, I watched an old movie. One James and I used to like. I curled up in my blanket, and for the first time, the absence beside me didn't feel empty. It felt earned. After the movie, I took out the boxes from the hall closet. They were filled with things I'd kept for years, drawings from when Michael was in grade school, a ceramic heart he made me in art class, birthday cards with crayon scrawls, little handprints on paper that said "I love you, Mommy." I had saved them all. Not for sentimental reasons, but as proof. Proof that once, I was loved out loud. I went through every item, and with each one, I asked myself, who am I keeping this for? I picked out a few things and put them in a smaller box, labeled it, and placed it on my bookshelf. The rest, I packed away. Not thrown out, just moved. Set aside. I no longer needed to prove to myself that I had given love. I knew I had. The next morning, I walked to the post office and mailed the documents. Deed updates. Beneficiary changes. Account terminations. And a letter. One for Michael. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Michael. I've always loved you. But love is not permission. And it's not silence. You may not feel what you said was cruel, but I did. I heard it in every room I cleaned for you. I heard it in every dollar I sent without question. I heard it in every meal I made where no one said thank you. From now on, you will not hear from me. You will not receive from me. And maybe, in the quiet, you will begin to understand the shape of everything I once gave without asking. Mom. I mailed it without hesitation. The snow was falling harder when I stepped outside. I walked past the bakery and smiled at the woman behind the counter. She waved. It was a small moment. But it was the first time in a long time I felt seen by someone without conditions. That evening, my phone buzzed. Ryan. Hi, Grandma. Mom said you were mad. I don't know why you left. I hope you're okay. I sat with the message for a long time. Ryan had never been cruel. Just unaware. But I was done explaining. I typed one line back. I love you, Ryan. I'm okay. I didn't add more. Because it wasn't my job to protect them from the consequences of their choices anymore. Later that night, I went through the old drawer by my bed. In the very back was a letter James had written to me years ago, one I hadn't read in a long time. He had written it on our 30th anniversary. You carry this family, Maureen. I don't say it enough. But you're the reason we have a home. You're the spine of our story. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it with the new documents. Because sometimes, the people who are gone leave behind more clarity than the ones who stay. It snowed all night. And in the morning, when the world outside looked clean and untouched, I felt something inside me finally match it. Still. quiet. Free. They could gather around the table without me. They could drink their wine and laugh at their jokes and pass the dishes around like nothing had changed. But I knew the truth. They would feel the missing piece. And for the first time, I wouldn't be the one left wondering why. It started subtly, like a room where the light dims so slowly you don't notice until you're sitting in the dark. 2 days passed. No reply to my message to Ryan. No knock on my door. No phone call. Then, late on the third evening, I heard a voicemail. "Hi Mom, it's Michael. I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if we could talk. Things have been strange and I don't want them to stay like this. Call me back. Please." I didn't. Because the words still echoed too clearly. That seat's for real family. I wasn't interested in smoothing over a sentence that cut straight through my ribs. I wasn't interested in another round of pretending. The silence deepened. By the 5th day, I got a text from Amanda. Just a question mark. That felt appropriate. That was exactly how I existed to them, a question mark. Unclear. Unnecessary. Conditional. I left it unread. But by the end of the week, the messages changed. "Why are you doing this? We said we were sorry, didn't we? Ryan is confused. You owe him some kind of explanation." Each word felt like a slap. Because they still didn't see me. They saw only the ripple effect of my absence. Not the reason I left. The resentment bloomed like a bruise. I had done everything for them. Quietly. Willingly. I never asked for recognition. Only respect. But when that was too much to give, I stopped giving. And they didn't know what to do without my constant presence holding the seams together. Amanda tried next. She sent a longer message this time. "I know Michael can be careless with his words, but he didn't mean it. You know how he is. You raised him. You always said family is about forgiveness." That sentence made me close my phone. Because it wasn't true. I never said family was about forgiveness. I said family was about showing up. About remembering birthdays. About holding space for someone without making them feel like a burden. I never asked for perfection. I asked for presence. And all I got was performance. Michael performed being a good son when other people were around. Holidays, birthdays, public spaces. But in private, he withdrew. And Amanda never stepped in. Never said, "That was too far." Even now, she minimized it. Careless with words. It wasn't just words. It was truth. It was how he saw me. A placeholder. A relic. Something to move aside when company arrived. And now that I had removed myself, they were squinting in the dark, looking for the light they never noticed was mine. On the 7th day, they arrived. Michael and Amanda stood at my doorstep. I didn't answer the door. They knocked 3 times. Called my name. Michael's voice cracked. Amanda sounded impatient. I stood just beyond the curtain, heart steady. I had nothing to give them. Not because I hated them. But because I finally loved myself enough not to be their backup plan. Eventually, they left. But not quietly. Michael raised his voice on the last knock. "Mom, this is childish. You're punishing us." Amanda followed, "You're ruining Christmas over a misunderstanding." What kind of message does that send to Ryan? Their anger spilled through the door like heat from a fire I no longer stood near. They weren't just upset. They were offended that I had the audacity to choose myself. They called again and again over the next 2 days. Their voices became sharper. "We've bent over backwards for you. You always play the victim. Don't you dare guilt trip us with silence." And when none of that worked, Amanda sent an email with a single line, "You are not the only one who gets to feel hurt." As if acknowledging my pain somehow erased theirs. as if their discomfort now balanced out decades of neglect. Later, a note appeared under the door. Please come to Christmas. Ryan keeps asking where you are. It was folded neatly. Written in Michael's handwriting. But the guilt was no longer mine to carry. I had carried enough. I lit a candle that evening. Made myself a bowl of soup. Sat by the window and watched the snow pile on the street. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. The next day, the first cracks appeared. Amanda's sister, whom I never particularly liked, posted on social media about a very tense Christmas ahead. Michael's coworker texted me, a man I had met once at a charity function. Just wanted to say I hope you're okay. Mike's been, not himself lately. The comfort they thought I would always provide had vanished. They hadn't just lost a mother. They lost their safety net. The one who smoothed things over. The one who cleaned messes before guests arrived. The one who made holidays happen. Their system was falling apart. The anger didn't stop there. Michael left me a voicemail 2 days before Christmas. His voice was cold. You're being cruel. I don't know what you think you're proving, but you're breaking this family. If you don't show up, don't expect to be let back in. Amanda sent a group message. Me, Michael, Ryan. Everyone makes mistakes. We apologized. This is starting to feel manipulative. That one cut the deepest. Because even in their regret, they saw me as the problem. And then she said something I'll never forget. Real family doesn't keep score. That was the moment I finally laughed. A real, full laugh. Not out of joy, but disbelief. Because all I had ever done was erase the score. Wipe the board clean. Give without ledger or tally. They only noticed scorekeeping when the giving stopped. But the most unexpected thing happened a week later. A letter. From someone I hadn't heard from in years. And it changed everything I thought I knew about what it means to be seen. The letter came in a plain white envelope. No return address. No name. Just my first name, handwritten in blue ink. I stared at it for a while before opening it. Something about it felt old. Not aged, but timeless. Like a voice from another version of my life was about to speak. Inside was a short note. Neat, steady handwriting. The kind that belongs to someone who writes when they mean it. Dear Maureen. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. In 1996, I was a young single mother living down the hall from you in the old apartment building on Riverton Street. My daughter was sick a lot. I was working nights. There were days I thought I couldn't go on. You brought me groceries more than once. You left them by the door without ever expecting a thank you. You helped me fix my heater when it broke in the middle of winter. You watched my daughter once when I had no one else. At the time, I didn't know how to say thank you properly. I was tired and scared and ashamed. But I never forgot it. And when my daughter graduated college last week, you were one of the first people I thought of. Because people like you leave ripples that never fade. Thank you. There was no signature. Just a small drawing of a sunflower in the corner. I sat at the table and cried. Not out of grief. Not from the pain of being cast aside by my own son. But from being remembered. From being seen. From being told, in the quietest way, that what I gave mattered. The timing was too perfect to ignore. I looked around the kitchen. The space I had once filled with meals for people who never said thank you. The table that had always been full of others, while I ate after everyone had gone home. I had spent years giving, hoping that one day it would come back. That someone would remember. That someone would love me out loud. And someone did. Not the ones I sacrificed for. But someone who watched. Someone who knew. I folded the letter carefully and placed it on my mantel. The next few days were quiet. The snow stayed. So did my resolve. I received 3 more messages from Michael. Each more desperate. each more familiar. You're really not coming? We set a place for you anyway. Just in case. Don't do this. But I already had. I turned off my phone on Christmas Eve. I lit the candles on the table for myself. I made the foods I loved. I poured a glass of wine. I played old music and left the TV off. It was the most peaceful holiday I had ever had. No tension. No tight smiles. No pretending. Just me, and the truth. The house was still. And in that stillness, I didn't feel lonely. I felt whole. Because they could scream and accuse and call me names. But they would never again get the version of me who gave everything without question. They would never again sit at a table I set, only to tell me I didn't belong at it. And if you think I felt regret, I didn't. I felt clarity. For years, I thought love meant sacrifice. But real love doesn't ask you to disappear. Real love doesn't demand silence, doesn't punish boundaries. So I chose something different. I chose me. When I finally turned my phone back on, it was flooded with missed calls, texts, a voicemail from Ryan. Even Amanda had sent a photo of the table, with a caption, "It didn't feel right without you." But it wasn't an apology. It was another performance. So I let it sit. And I didn't reply. Instead, I went for a walk. The snow was deep but soft. A little girl waved at me from a porch and said, "Merry Christmas." I waved back and said it too. I smiled all the way home. Because I realized, age is not about weakness. It's about dignity. And I would rather spend the rest of my life alone, in peace, than another moment begging for love I already gave.